Penstar. Penstar. That comes off. Penstar. This is the Penstar eNote. It's an e-ink note-taking tablet. I actually haven't heard of this brand before, so they sent me this device to review, but I'm not being paid to make this video. And I have mixed feelings about this one. This is a really bare bones note-taking device, so I'll just say that right off the bat. You're not gonna get a ton of fancy features with the Penstar eNote, and there's two big things here that I wanna get out of the way that may be a deal breaker for you, whether that be good or bad. So number one is there is no touch screen here, which makes the Penstar different than many other e-ink note-taking tablets. If you try to touch your finger against the screen here, nothing happens. You absolutely need to use the stylus to do anything on the Penstar eNote. And number two is that it does not have a backlight. Now, this is pretty common with most e-ink note-taking tablets like the Remarkable 2, which doesn't have a backlight either, but it's worth pointing out just in case you are using this in a darker environment. You will need a light source to see. Now, because it doesn't have either of these features, it's super thin and lightweight, and the display looks really good in black and white here. The display sits right up against that protective writing layer here, which is nice and matte for you. And it looks so good. Now, it's got a 10.3-inch display, which is very similar to many other e-ink note-taking tablets. And it's at 227 ppi resolution in black and white, which looks really good. And other specs seem to be fairly similar to what you'd find in many other e-ink note-taking tablets. Now, one feature I do want to call out that does make the Penstar different is this bar on the left-hand side here with programmable buttons, which is really nice. You can program these buttons to do different tasks, like go back on the menu or press one and it will automatically open up a new note. That's really cool, and I think really helps since this does not have a standard touchscreen. So let's get to the important stuff. How does it write? So I'm going to open up the Notes app that it comes with here, and I really do like this app. When you create a note, you have the option to make cover art like you would for a physical notebook, which is kind of cool. There's also a bunch of options here for different writing templates you can select, whether that be dots or grids or lines. I think you'll find something that works for you. And you can also change out the type of pen or pencil you're using and the brush stroke and style like you would with pretty much any other e-ink tablet that you'd buy today. So writing on the Penstar feels pretty good. It's got a nice matte screen, which gives it nice friction while you're writing, so it feels close-ish to paper, especially with the felt tip nibs that it comes with. Now, there is a little bit of glare on this depending on the lighting environment. I noticed that when I had my overhead lights on, I'd have to tilt the Penstar up a little bit. Just maybe a little bit more glare than you'd get with something like the Remarkable 2, but it's not terrible. So I've been using the felt tip nib, which runs out fairly quickly, so you're probably gonna run through these fairly often. And there's also a harder tip that it comes with, but I think the felt tip is what you're gonna like best. You can convert notes to PDFs, and it does have the option to convert to text and even allow you to record audio with your notes as well. Now, one thing that I do really like here about their Notes app is the search function, which can search through both titles and content of your notes, which I think is a feature that every note-taking device should have. I mean, it looks great. Very, very close to writing on paper, but I personally don't think it feels quite as good as writing on the Remarkable. And I think a big part of that is that this stylus just feels lightweight and flimsy. This feels like a cheap mechanical pencil. It's got this kind of cheap clip here. It does have an eraser on the back, but this eraser is like a hard plastic. So when you do go to erase on the screen, it feels kind of like you're scratching into that matte surface, which I'm a little hesitant to do because I'm worried that that may impact the layer over time. If you unscrew this middle section, It actually has room for 4 spare nibs, which I think is a great touch. One thing that is nice is you don't have to charge this stylus. This is battery free, which is great. It just, I wish were a little more substantial. Now, I've been using this very lightly for about 2 weeks now, and I will say that these felt tips do wear down fairly quickly, at least with my writing strength and pressure. So I would say you're probably going to run through these pretty quick. You also get 10 spare nibs and the 4 that are included within the stylus, which is great. That should last you at least a couple months, I'd think. Now, one thing that I didn't need to worry about in my testing was battery life. Right now I'm at 47% after a full charge when this device arrived, and I have not needed to charge it yet, and I have been using it almost daily for note-taking during work. It has a 6,000 milliamp battery, but because there's no touch screen or backlight, and really any apps that draw a whole lot of power from this thing, the battery lasts quite a long time. And when you do need to charge it, there is a USB-C port on the bottom. As for other features here, it's limited. It can connect to Wi-Fi, and it can sync your notes with the Penstar app that I think you can download on both desktop and mobile devices. There's also ways to integrate Google Drive and Microsoft Office files, but that takes a little bit of work setting up, and personally, I haven't really used that feature. One thing I do want to point out is you're not running full Google Drive or Microsoft Office apps here. And that's an interesting point because this Penstar eNote does run Android, but it doesn't have a mobile app store like some other e-ink note-taking devices do, at least not in this version. Now, Penstar has said that you can download some apps here, and you're gonna have to do that manually by downloading and installing the package contents. But for me, that's way too much work, and I just don't have the time to do that. I also haven't talked about this cover yet. So this cover is free. It's included when you buy the Penstar eNote, as is the stylus with the eraser, which I think is really nice, as a lot of other competitors have these as a separate accessory that you need to purchase, and they're like 50 bucks or 100 bucks. It's pretty easy to attach. It's kind of like this faux leathery vinyl, which is fine. It kind of clips in to the side here, folds up just fine. There's no magnetic cover, so it does kind of just flop around. But it does have this area where you can just slide the stylus in, which is really nice because even though the stylus isn't magnetic, this I do prefer because it is secure. And like some other e-ink devices that I have used, when you have the magnetic stylus on the side and you're carrying it around, you can knock it against something and it could fly off. So is the Penstar eNote worth it? If you've seen my review of the Remarkable 2, you may know where this is going. E-ink note-taking tablets in general are a premium niche product. iPads and Android tablets are comparable in price to a lot of these devices, and I think for most people, they're gonna get a lot more value out of something like an iPad than an e-ink note-taking tablet. And the Penstar eNote is no different. But if we are comparing price amongst e-ink note-taking tablets, I do think that the Penstar eNote does offer a lot of value when compared with some of the leading e-ink tablets out there. Like the Remarkable 2, because you get both this nice cover and a stylus with an eraser, all for under 400 bucks. Personally, I still think that's a lot to spend on a device just to feel like you're writing on paper, but for some people, that may be just exactly what you need. If you're interested in picking up the Penstar eNote, I put a link in the description below where you can check it out for yourself. Thanks for watching, and let me know if you've tested this out in the comments below.